So I just finished editing my morning video, and as I was walking back, I just had so much news that I wanted to get out to everyone that I wanted to do another video. And there's just a lot of news to talk about, and then I want to take a step back and also talk about Russia and China, and some information that I got from reading Lavrov's Q&A session at a university in Russia, as well as an article that was sent to me via the locals community from Bloomberg. So we'll leave that to the end, China and Russia, and some of the overall strategy of the West vis-a-vis the Ukraine conflict, and all of a sudden the change in narrative to focus in on China. I think there's an explanation there that, well, I would like to discuss with everyone. But first, let's get to the news, because we have a lot of news here. And let me walk here on this path right here. All right. So first off, we have the news that Kherson, the region of Kherson in the south, close to Odessa, I mean, fairly close to Odessa, but pretty much the region, say, around the Sea of Azov, that they're going to be switching to the ruble. I think this is an interesting development. Now, you could say that they're moving away from the Ukraine hryvnia, which is the currency of Ukraine, for technical reasons, because of the conflict, etc. But we all know that Kherson is under Russian control. It has been for a while. There's some fighting and skirmishes, but it's pretty much under control of the Russian Federation, and they're going to now be using the ruble. And I said this in a video about a week ago, and I think I also discussed it with Alexander on a live that we were doing. I believe that these areas, say Donetsk and Lugansk, the full provinces, and Kherson in this area to the south, I believe that now that Russia has these areas, they're not going to give them back. I mean, that's my belief. Even if Zelensky were to agree today with all of Russia's demands, all of them, neutrality, recognition of Crimea, recognition of Donetsk and Lugansk, going back to the previous contact line before the operation, full neutrality, denazification, even if he was going to agree, even if he was going to agree to all of those demands, which he's not, we know he's not, because he can't agree, because he's just a puppet. But say he was, I still do not think that Russia would give up these areas that they have now won, that they have full control over, especially the areas in the south like Kherson. Because these areas, what they do is they provide a land bridge to Crimea, which they didn't have before, and that's important to have a land bridge to Crimea. They also free up the water supply from the north. Remember, that water supply via that canal on the north, Ukraine shut it down in order to try and starve off the people of Crimea, in order to knock off their water supply. I mean, what I consider to be a despicable move, because, why make it difficult for the people on that peninsula to get drinking water? I mean, politics, everything, put everything aside. You have to at least show some sort of humanity to get water to them, water and food, say. Just my opinion on that. But the Ukraine government, they choked off that water canal. Well, now it's been open. So there's all kinds of different reasons why that area of Kherson is so important to the Russian Federation, and why I believe that it's not going to be given back. I just don't believe so. And the fact that they're now moving to a ruble, I think, is more evidence of that fact. You could say maybe it's temporary, maybe it's for technical reasons, but I don't see it. Anyway, we have that news, which is interesting news. We have an update as to what's going on in Mariupol. I did a video in the morning with regards to Mariupol. The fighting is intense, it's brutal, it's difficult. The Azov guys, they're deeply entrenched. Human shields. They're using apartments of residents and civilians. And, they're making their last stand there. They're making their last stand in Mariupol because they know that they have nowhere to go. I mean, when you look at the situation as to what's going on, Mariupol, right on the Sea of Azov, the whole region is just under the control of the Russian military. And so they're completely surrounded on all sides, going way back, way deep inland. So they're making their last stand, because if there were to be a lot of these Azov guys to surrender, would mean, facing the Russian tribunals that will inevitably be set up in order to deal with these NAZIs. So they're fighting to the end. I mentioned how reports are saying there were 14,000 of them, and now there's 6,000 of these Azov guys. And we've gotten reports, and I'm going to put a map up, that the 50% of the Mariupol city center, which has been taken over by the Russian army, is now 70%. These are the latest reports. I think this is very reliable. This map that you're going to see right now, that you're seeing right now, is reliable, and it's showing that day by day, piece by piece, the Russian army, the Donbass militia, the Chechen fighters, they're freeing up Mariupol, apartment by apartment, city block by city block. So I wanted to get that news out to everybody, because this is also a significant development. And remember, once the Russian army has Mariupol, I mean, that's pretty much the last city that needs to be taken by the Russian army in order for them to claim absolute full control of the Kherson region and the entire southern region, Sea of Azov region, and all those provinces. So it's a key city. It is the key city, and it's been a brutal conflict there. I mean, I'm reading reports that neighborhoods change hands, several times within a single day, because it's block by block city fighting. So that's the latest on Mariupol. Now, let's shift gears here. Jake Sullivan is making statements that Russia will be kicked out of the G20. He is starting to make these statements, saying that it's time for Russia to leave the G20. And of course, the US will discuss this with their European partners, right? So that's going to be taking place. You have the IMF, the deputy director or deputy chairperson of the IMF came out with a statement and said, many countries are starting to de-dollarize. They're starting to ditch the dollar as reserve currency. It's raining a little bit, so you may see some rain hitting me. But they're starting to de-dollarize. And for the IMF, which is a US-led institution, a Western institution, for them to come out and say this, alarm bells are going off. And the reasons that many countries are starting to ditch the dollar as a reserve currency, well, because Biden had the clever idea to go after Russia, to go after their central bank and their reserves. So countries are saying, screw this. I'm not going to hold dollars, because they're going to come after me. When they're done coming after Russia, they're going to come after me. So that is big news. Now Biden is in Europe, and he is okay. We got a Greek guy here who's kind of yelling. I don't know what he's yelling at, but you get that here. We Greeks are very loud sometimes. It's in the culture. It's in the blood. But let's see. Yeah. So Biden is going to be in Europe, and he's going to attend this meeting in Brussels, where they're going to discuss Ukraine. And I said in my morning video that they're going to be also looking at reprimanding China, sending a warning to China. Don't you dare back Russia. Don't you dare continue to support Russia. Otherwise, we're going to target you as well. And they're going to prepare this statement as well. So they're opening up a two-front economic war. One against Russia, which they've already opened up, and they've pretty much thrown everything they could at Russia. And the second front that they're opening up now is against China. But Biden is also going around saying that India is looking very shaky. He's very upset because India is shaky. And those are Biden's words. That's his quote. India is very shaky because they're not supporting the U.S. and the collective West. And he's very upset with that. And he is urging the Indian government to comply with the collective West, to support the collective West, to ditch Russia, to ditch China, to stop buying Russian oil, stop buying Russian natural resources, and to start supporting the sanctions. So he is trying desperately to bring India on side with the collective West. And I'm sure he's going to be talking about India with the Europeans, the collective partners that he has in Europe, the partners that he has in Europe. Now, let me sit down. Well, I'll try to sit down. It's raining, so you know what? I'm not going to sit down. But let me lean up here because I want to pull out my phone here. And let me lean up. Let me actually go this way. All right. Better. And let me pull up now two statements, because I was thinking today, as I was doing my first video, you know, why are they going after China so hard now? Why is the narrative shifted? Why all of a sudden is it China, China, China? Sanctions against China. NATO's going to issue statements about China. And sometimes when you think about something, the answers just kind of come to you, you know, kind of out of the blue, they come to you. And this is very much the case. So I was on the website, the Saker, and he had a really good article with Lavrov's Q&A session that he had at a university. I believe it was a university in Moscow, and he had, like, you know, students and leaders in the university, student leaders in the university, sit down with him and just, you know, kind of ask him questions and, you know, what's going on a geopolitical level with Ukraine, with Russia, economic policy, and all of these things. And it is a fantastic interview, a fantastic Q&A session. I'm going to put the link down below so everyone can get it, can read it, can study it. It's in English, so it's been translated in English, and the website does a really good job of just presenting the Q&A and the speech that Lavrov gave at the beginning as is. And he makes some incredible statements and very interesting revelations. He talks a lot about how, you know, this conflict is not out of the blue like the West is portraying it. This has been a conflict that has been brewing for 10, 20 years. It goes back to the Obama coup in 2014 in Ukraine. It goes back to what happened in Georgia. It goes back to Putin's speech at the Munich Security Conference in 2007. It goes back to the war against Serbia, the bombing of Serbia. And, you know, Lavrov is just saying how we tried for year after year, decade after decade, to try and work with the West. And at every turn, all they did was not only rebuke us, but they would make fun of us in a way. They would cheat us. They wouldn't take us seriously. They looked at us as second-class, you know, citizens. They didn't take our security guarantees, you know, into consideration. And then he talked a lot about how the Ukraine army was assembled in the east of Ukraine, and they had, you know, 250 to 300,000 troops, and they were ready to invade. And even then, even when Russia knew they were ready to invade with this blitzkrieg on the east of Ukraine, on the Donbass, and try to take it over, Lavrov said even then, you know, Putin and the leadership of the Kremlin was trying to talk to them and say, pull back, retreat. We need to figure this out. And anyway, he gets into all of the details of everything that happened. He even talks about how Nord Stream 2 and how Angela Merkel was BSing them. And then Olaf Scholz came in and he BS'd them. And Germany couldn't make an independent sovereign decision without consulting with the U.S. He also said how under Biden, Europe became fully integrated into the United States. It lost all its sovereignty under Biden. So anyway, check out the interview, read it. It's fantastic. But let me read you a quote with regards to China. And I think this is going to shed some light as to why all of this is happening with regards to Russia and China, why the collective West is going after Russia and China. And so here was the question that was given to Lavrov. The Russian foreign minister, Lavrov. Russia is the last obstacle that Western hegemony needs to overcome before challenging China. Lavrov to the question, why couldn't the situation with Ukraine be resolved peacefully? Because the West did not want to solve the situation by peaceful means. This is not about Ukraine at all, or rather, not so much about Ukraine, but about the world legal order. The United States took over the whole of Europe Under Biden, the United States set itself the task of subjugating Europe and achieving its unquestioning adherence to the American course. The current crisis is a fateful moment. This is an epical moment in modern history. It reflects the battle over what the world order will look like. A misunderstood sense of one's own infinite superiority also prevails in the situation that we are considering. Building a world in which the West will lead everything with impunity and unquestioningly. There's a lot of speculation that Russia is being pushed right now because it's the last hurdle to get past before China gets involved. This is simply said, but there is a serious truth in it. Why couldn't it be resolved by peace? We have been proposing to solve this amicably for many years. Notice what Lavrov says. Russia is the last hurdle before China. Very interesting. And now let me get to an article which was sent to me on Locals via the Duran.locals via a community member. And it's a Bloomberg article, and let me pull it up here. And it was written by Niall Ferguson. And the article has the title of Putin Misunderstands History, so unfortunately does the U.S. Biden is making a colossal mistake in thinking he can bleed Russia dry, topple Putin, and signal to China to keep its hands off Taiwan. And let me read you an excerpt here. It says, Washington will revert to the Afghanistan after 1979 playbook of supplying an insurgency only if the Ukraine government loses the conventional war. One sec. I have evidence from other sources to corroborate this. The only end game now, a senior administration official was heard to say at a private event earlier this month, is the end of Putin regime. Until then, all the time Putin stays, Russia will be a pariah state that will never be welcomed back into the community of nations. China has made a huge error in thinking Putin will get away with it. Seeing Russia get cut off will not look like a good vector, and they'll have to reevaluate the Sino-Russia axis. All this is to say that democracy and the West may well look back on this as a pivotal strengthening moment. I gather that senior British figures are talking in similar terms. There is a belief that the UK's number one option is for the conflict to be extended and thereby bleed Putin. Again and again, I hear such language. It helps explain, among other things, the lack of any diplomatic effort by the U.S. to secure a ceasefire. It also explains the readiness of President Joe Biden to call Putin a war criminal. So basically what this article is saying, and this article is not pro-Putin at all when you read it. I mean, they're hoping that Putin loses and they're hoping that Russia collapses and the Kremlin collapses. Basically what this article is saying and what Lavrov is saying is that the strategy has been and always will be and remains, we need regime change in Russia. We need the Russian government and the Kremlin to fall. And when the Russian government and the Kremlin falls, then we are going to target China and regime change in China. That is the overarching overall plan. These are sources that Bloomberg has in the U.S. government. These are sources that they claim to have in the British government, and that is the thinking. The thinking is we need to make Russia a pariah state. We need to decouple Russia from Europe, make Russia into the ultimate bad guy, isolate Russia socially, economically, isolate its people, so that we get a regime change in Russia, so that we destroy Russia as a country. And once Russia is destroyed as a country, well, all eyes turn towards China. So anyway, guys, it is starting to come down really, really hard here. So I am going to leave it at that. What do you think of that, of what I just read you? Is that the overall strategy? Is that why we're seeing all of a sudden China being brought into it? Have they started to accelerate this strategy, given the reality of what's happening on the ground in Ukraine, given the reality that Russia has withstood all the sanctions and the Putin government is now more popular than ever? Unfortunately, for these deep state guys, these interagency guys, there's no reverse gear. They have a plan, and they're going to stick to that plan. That's what I believe. Their plan is color revolution, regime change in Russia at all costs, even if it means destroying Europe, even if it means destroying the dollar. And then you got to destroy China. So things have, I think things have accelerated, and they're starting to move their plans up. We got to bring China in now. We got to start the smearing of China now. We got to start to make China a pariah state now. And it seems like they're accelerating everything. But they're also destroying their own system and their own architecture in their desire to destroy Russia and China. In their hatred and their desire to destroy Russia and China, they're willing to sacrifice Europe and the United States. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But then again, you could say one more thing, and before I cut out, you could say one more thing about this: the fact that they're willing to destroy the U.S. and destroy Europe. At the end of the day, these guys, they have no country. They are globalists. So it doesn't matter what countries they destroy or what countries they sacrifice to achieve their goals. If their goal is to destroy Russia and then destroy China, to get their hands on Russia and then get their hands on China, it doesn't matter what countries they have to demolish on their way to those goals. Anyway, that is the video, guys. TheDuran.locals.com. I'm heading out of here, and I'm going to go to a dry spot. Take care.